Any good things take a lot of hard work to produce, but hard work should feel pleasant. You do that hard work and you feel really good after doing that hard work. You could feel tired and exhausted and maybe frustrated at times, but you still feel very good about yourself and what you're doing. Whereas if you do this out of pain, if you feel like struggle, you feel like, oh shit, it's like this hard work that I have to put to achieve something. So that's going against the flow. Hello, welcome to Metacast, episode 17.
Wow, seriously?
15.
Okay.
15, yes. I'm your host, Ilya.
And I'm Arnab. I'm still amazed at episode 15. Wow.
Yeah, it feels almost like a prime number, except that it's not a prime number.
Yeah.
It's a multiplication of the prime numbers, 5 and 3.
Yeah.
So today we are doing something really cool. So we are recording in person.
In Vancouver.
In beautiful British Columbia, yes. It's a lovely place.
The sun is starting to come out, both today and in the year.
Yeah, we're in Arnab's house and we used some really awesome makeshift setup.
Yeah.
We have... So yeah, actually our videos look pretty awesome. Yeah, check out our Substack for the picture of what it actually looks like from the outside.
Yeah.
We have 2 iPhones on tripods as our cameras.
One on top of about 6 Dogman books.
And a Titanic
Yeah.
book. So I hope this recording does not sink.
Yeah.
And it doesn't break in half.
Yeah.
So we use both of my microphones for this recording. We use a Shure V7, which is the mic I'm recording on, through USB. And Arnab is using my Shure SM58 connected to Focusrite Scarlett 2i2.
And basically what that means in layman's terms is when Ilya flew from Miami to Seattle and then drove here, more than half of his suitcase was full of audio equipment.
Yes. And I thought I would be stopped by the TSA people, the security control, because I saw the picture of what I was carrying on their screens.
Right.
They actually, in Fort Lauderdale, they now have these really cool new like X-ray machines.
Right.
I don't know, they look like a spaceship. I should add a picture of that to this Substack
Can
as
you?
well.
I don't know. Can you take pictures of the TSA security station?
Okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't take any pictures.
Yeah.
But yeah, they look like spaceship and they show the contents of the bag in like 3D and they can like move them around. So I had like 2 laptops there, 2 mics, a bunch of cables and stuff. Yeah, they just let me go.
So this prevents like this. They don't need to ask you to open it up anymore. They can actually turn it around and see everywhere.
The funny thing was, like, remember how for the last 20 years, they've been yelling at everybody to take their laptop out of their bag?
Yeah.
Now they were yelling at me to not take laptop out of my bag. And I'm like, when did the rule change? And she's like, this is the rule now. Don't take a laptop out of your bag. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
Depends on the airport though.
Yeah, well, I've never seen X-ray machines like this before.
Right.
So that's Fort Lauderdale Airport, the specific, it was Terminal 2 where Delta flies from.
Right.
And that was actually pretty good, very, very quick. I wish they will stop asking us to take our shoes off. It's probably the only country in the world that still does that. Yeah.
The one interesting thing, are we recording video today, Ilya?
Yes, we're recording video. That's why we have these iPhone cameras.
Yes, of course. Yeah. The one interesting thing today is if you actually see the video, and where will our videos be posted, Ilya?
I think we will just cut some reels from this.
Okay.
Because like posting the full video, let's try it, but we'll see how it goes. But I don't promise that we will have full videos.
Right. I think if you are looking at the reels cut from it, one thing you may notice is...
how awesome it looks like.
Yes, of course. But also like we're actually... I feel like it's a completely different dynamic because even though we are facing each other, like we're actually in the same room and I'm looking at you and not you in the screen like this, which is a completely different dynamic. I'm enjoying this feeling.
Exactly. If I want to interrupt you or like insert something, it feels so natural compared to when...
Hey, by the way, can you... what were you saying? Sorry, what?
Oh, you go first. So yeah, so none of that crap.
Yeah.
Because like I can feel it, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like a human now.
Yeah.
This is so good. It feels so good.
Yeah, and for the next segment of our Metasode today, I think we want to also thank our sponsor, the Dogman Comics.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we are supported by, like literally we are being propped up by or supported by Dev Pilkey's awesome Dogman books.
Well, supported by, yeah, but sponsored by.
Sponsored by.
Yeah, I'm showing air quotes if you're listening.
Yes. And we have a bunch of Dogman books behind me, and we have a dog in the room and two men.
Yeah.
It's all about Dogman today. But I mean, in case there's any legal issues or anything, nobody's supporting us people are supporting us, but nobody's sponsoring us.
Yeah, we have our own support group here with just two of us, two men supporting each other.
And definitely not Meta.
Not Meta, no.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, actually speaking about Meta, I sort of skimmed through the memo that Mark Zuckerberg sent to his employees that he's going to do another round of layoffs, 9,000 people. I mean, I empathize with people who will be affected and all. But as I was reading this, I really realized I respect him as a founder of the company who takes the measures that he needs to take to do what supposedly in the best interest of the company. He's not a hired person, and I don't know. I never liked Facebook. I never liked Meta as a company. Still don't. I never liked Zuck really. But that last email that I read, that feels like I'm starting to regain some respect towards Zuckerberg as a founder.
It's quite ironic that the feeling you're having is now at the time when they're having to let go of X thousand of people. Right?
Yeah.
But I think I hear you. And of all the posts that came out, right, from Amazon, from Google, all these other companies.
All of those execs, they take responsibility.
Yeah.
Take full responsibility for what's happening.
This one sounded the most genuine, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, we got to downsize. Here are the areas, blah, blah, blah. So, but it's but he's a founder. It's different.
Yeah. And I'm also really interested to see where this goes because unlike the other big tech companies, I think Meta is basically the cutting or laying off the middle manager part. And I'm interested to see how this shapes up the company or what happens next.
I have no empathy for the middle managers. Well, I have less empathy for the middle managers than I have for regular individual contributors who do the work. I mean, I have reasons for that.
Right.
So one thing to say, I guess, about our setup today is that we are doing this in person. So we have two microphones. So some sound will bleed over. We have no idea. We've never done this before.
Yeah.
I mean, I did this before once for my other podcast, but we used just one microphone. So we were taking turns to speak. Now we use two mics. I have no idea how it's going to
So we'll
work.
still get two different audio channels and you will be able to mix them separately, but some sound from one will bleed over into the other because we're in the same space.
Yeah, like when we interrupt each other or when one person laughs while the other is talking, some of that sound will bleed over.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, more work for Misha.
Yeah. Sorry, Misha.
Yeah, but he also recommended to us to put some towels underneath the mics so that here's a pro tip, a very cheap pro tip.
Yeah.
If you have a desk with hard surface, you can put a towel underneath your mic stand so that the sound doesn't bounce from the hard top surface back into the mic.
Do you need to cover the whole surface, the whole table, or just below the mic and the immediate vicinity is good enough? I guess we'll find out.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll find out. I guess Misha, tell us.
Right. So talking about the Metasode, today's Metasode is about our episode 14. And I think we recorded that on the 15th of March, Wednesday.
Today is March 25th, so it was 10 days ago.
So 15th of March, we recorded it late in the evening here in Vancouver. And then the next day I flew to Mexico. And then I came back 2 days ago without having basically snorkeled and done stuff like that. I have not listened to that episode. I don't remember anything about it. So this will be an interesting Metasode. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm really curious how that will pan out because Justin, who is an awesome guy and the creator of Winamp and Reaper, digital audio workstation, he had a Linux laptop.
Yeah.
Which is the first time ever. Actually, I talked to somebody who has a Linux laptop. Usually people have a Mac or a Windows and they have a Linux box for development, but not necessarily on their laptop. And he used some kind of external Zoom recorder connected to the machine. And there was a lot of noises.
And he had his left arm or I'm forgetting now, wrist broken or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But also he had his laptop on his laps.
Yes.
And his mic was also there, and it was moving quite a bit, so there's quite a bit of noise. Again, we haven't processed that episode yet, so we'll see how it comes out, but there might be some audio problems there.
Right. You also mentioned, Ilya, that there was a lot of drift between the three channels, right? You, me, and
yes.
Justin, yeah.
Yeah. So the audio was just all out of whack. It was just all out of sync. I had to basically like open all of that in Reaper and just move all of the segments around so that they sound kind of sequential, because otherwise if you import this into Descript, it will just trip out. It's not going to take it well. So yeah, I spent a good amount of time actually fixing that, and I couldn't quite figure out why it was happening. But now, as we just started recording this episode, I noticed that so my microphone, my Shure MV7, it is configured to, what's the right word here? To use like 48 kilohertz.
Yeah.
Is it frame rate? Not frame rate.
Bitrate.
Bitrate?
Yeah.
And the Scarlett, your interface, I mean, my interface that you're using, it was configured to use 192K, which actually Squadcast for some reason was showing as 19K. Maybe it can do like 6-digit numbers. And maybe that's why. So when you have different rate, then the audio just sort of drifts. Yeah. Quite possible that Justin's equipment had maybe 44 kilohertz or something.
Yeah. Plus, he was on a very different setup than any of us or any of our guests so far.
Maybe that's why the rate was different, right?
Yeah.
So because I was using my Scarlett, you were using your Blue Yeti, which is probably 48 kilohertz, and then he was using his Linux thing. Maybe it was all differently set up, and that's why it was like that.
So for our podcaster listeners, if there's any who are listening, how do they fix this?
So if you're on a Mac, you go to Spotlight Search. So you do Command Shift.
Alfred. Do you mean Alfred?
No, I mean Spotlight.
No, you mean Alfred, yes.
Yeah, if you use Alfred, you use Alfred. If you don't, you just go to Spotlight, you do Command Shift, and you type MIDI in there, MIDI, and then you find the device. So it will open MIDI and audio setting. It's like an advanced device setting view. And there you find your audio interface or your microphone, and you change the... Actually, we should have looked what it's named there.
We'll put a screenshot in our show notes, yeah.
Whatever that frequency rate, or whatever it's called, to 48 kilohertz, 48,000 hertz. Yeah, and then restart the browser or restart Squadcast or whatever you use.
Good thing is Squadcast shows you that value, so just make sure that all the guests are on the same rate. And if you're on Windows, I'm sure there's about 15 clicks you can go through Control Panel and do the same thing. And if you're on Linux, I'm sure there's a command line way to change this somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting observation that we made today. And we were also talking about how it would have been really nice if the WAV format that we use for recording had time markers in there, so that when you import this into digital audio workstation, it will just synchronize based on the audio markers, as opposed to right now it has to do math to synchronize.
Well, does it have to, or you have to do it?
It probably doesn't do any math because it's all out of whack.
It assumes that it's synchronized.
I think what happens is like maybe your project is like, actually, I don't know how it works, but like that's my assumption, just a wild guess, that your project is maybe, let's say it's 48 kilohertz, right? And then you imported a 48 kilohertz file and...
but it's actually encoded in 19...
Actually, you know what? I don't think there's a project setting like this. I think the project is whatever it is. Then you add, let's say I add my track, and my track is 48 kilohertz. Right. And then I add yours, and yours get a little bit stretched because it has more frames. Yes. But I think we're getting too technical. And in case, if you want to avoid problems, make sure that all of them are the same, same rate.
But you're saying if these timestamps, because the physical time is passing at the same rate on both ends, regardless of what rate we're recording in, if that was embedded in the metadata of the web format, then Reaper or something else could read it and actually automatically synchronize it for you instead of you having to do this yourself.
Yeah, that would have been really, really nice.
It's interesting that our last two episodes, not last two, but of our last 6-ish episodes, we've had the creator of Reaper and the creators and founders of Squadcast on our show. And I think this is all about those two tools. Might be interesting feedback for them.
Yeah, we also need to get a Descript. Yes. And then we'll have full coverage of the tools that we use. Oh, and also somebody from Shure.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, Focusrite. Yeah, sure thing.
All right, Ilya, Focusrite.
Yeah, Focusrite.
While you Focusrite, let me get a bit of water. And I'm actually going to walk over to your side of the room and grab.
Actually, come pop up in my video.
Yes. Here I am getting my water bottle.
So if you're actually...
Woo-hoo! If you didn't believe us.
Yeah, we're here.
Or we are really good at deep fake video.
Oh, VR, you said, right? That's all virtual reality.
All right, I'm back on my side. All right, cool.
Yeah.
We'll probably cut all that anyway. Anyway, or maybe not. It's a Metasode.
So what was your favorite part of the Justin Frankel episode?
The part that I like the most, again, like I said, it's been 10, 12 days. I've not heard or thought about it at all, was his personality. The way that he found, I think, wild success with his first project when he was 20. But it's not like he was out to make money or something like that. It's almost like money wasn't his focus. He wanted to create that awesome piece of software, and he was inspired by AMP. Like he said, if you don't know what we are talking about, go listen to that episode. You'll figure out the history of Winamp and all that. And he released it almost like without anything. It's shareware, right? And if you want, you can pay back a bit of donation.
I think you're supposed to pay, but you can use it for free up to a certain extent.
Yeah, but there's no enforcement of it.
There's no enforcement, no.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he took a bit of offense when you said that it's like a donation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a distinction there.
Right.
But to be fair, I think the perception of shareware is that it's sort of free.
Right. And I think he was not financially motivated at all. And I think his success, and then he went on to create Reaper. He worked in AOL for a long time, 5 years, right?
5 years, yeah. Actually, he probably worked at AOL more than he worked for Nullsoft.
And he created these companies. And I was just amazed by how much success he had gotten without being motivated by money or something. He was basically motivated by creating awesome things, which is amazing, really inspiring.
It is very inspiring. So it's almost like he just created cool things, sent them to the world, and the world just paid him back wildly. Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, his software touched, I don't know, half of the world's population, I guess, of the population that had computers. So it's much less than half of the world's population because computers were very expensive back then.
Yeah. But around, say, like the year 2000 or 2005, around that time, every single person that I know of was running Winamp.
Yeah, absolutely. Even my wife knows what Winamp is. She's like, is it the thing that with like, whatever, the equalizer? It's like everybody knows it, who is maybe older than 35.
Yeah. What was your favorite?
Mine was also like along the same lines. You know, his company was like Nullsoft. So it was like a company. But in fact, he built the whole Winamp thing himself. And then he had some other person helping him with some of the back-end stuff, which, you know, are not part of the player. So he essentially built the whole thing himself. And then Reaper, he and another person essentially built the whole thing with just two of them. It's like a massive piece of software that they've built over the 20 years. Yeah. An interesting, I guess, observation here for myself is with the desktop software, there is basically zero marginal cost of distribution. Right. So you build the software, like the scale doesn't matter.
Because it's running on the end user's device.
Exactly, yes. And it's not connected to other devices or all, anything. So you basically could have 1 billion people using this or one person using this. It costs you the same. Whereas if you run like a web app or any kind of an API or any kind of web-based thing, right, with the server side, there is a big difference between 10 users and 1 million users. And there is an exponential difference between 1 million users and 100 million users. You have to like re-engineer the entire thing every time you pass that milestone. Whereas for him, they can just keep evolving the same thing. It's a bit too technical, but the way they do the code with that Windows thing, I forgot what exactly it's called. It's like, I'm surprised it works, but it does. And I don't know, it's a very fast piece of software. So, but yeah, somebody asks me to ask him a question, right? The way that person phrased the question was like, they release so many features and so frequently, but they must have a big team. How many people do they have? And yeah, the answer was just shocking. 2 people, right? Yeah.
I'm forgetting the details now, but he also mentioned how for feedback and support, it's really run like a really small company.
Oh yeah, it's probably like less than 10 people.
Yeah.
Out of which only 2 are engineers.
Yeah. And I sort of related to this. I was also really impressed, and I think it's almost like a role model for me, is how deeply technical he was.
Oh my God.
Right? I think there was one segment where I didn't understand more than 30% of what he was talking about. And what amazed me was it's rare to have that sort of experience and interest in deeply technical things, and yet at the same time run a company, produce a product that customers love, and do all of that. It's very rare.
I don't even know if I can come up with any other examples like this. John Carmack, I guess.
I think a lot of people aspire to be like that, and there are few people who are like that, but it's very, very rare, yeah.
Since we mentioned John Carmack, and he called Carmack his sort of, not a role model, but like somebody who he admires in another podcast. And we asked him about Carmack, but he didn't really go into much detail. But there is a really great book called Masters of Doom. Have you read it?
No, I have not. I've heard about it. It's a very famous book. Yeah.
It's a very, very good book by, I forgot the name of the author. He also wrote a book about GTA, the same author.
GTA, the game?
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know there was a book about GTA.
Yeah, it's just less popular than the Masters of Doom book. But yeah, in Masters of Doom, he talks about the history of id Software in the creation of Doom and Quake and other games. It really goes deep into describing how John Carmack works, who was basically like the mastermind behind all of the technology for those games. So those games were just groundbreaking. They invented 3D shooters and sprites and a bunch of other things that are now used in every game. Like they invented the way of doing those things. And Carmack is just so absolutely obsessed with things. I think he has a difficult personality. That's what I can gather from the book. But at the same time, he's like a genius. What was really interesting about Carmack that I read later on, this guy who created Oculus Rift, he was like a teenager or something, like a very, very, very young guy. I forgot his name.
Before Meta.
Before Meta bought them, yeah. So he was on some forums for VR people. He was just like talking about his invention, that thing that he did. He put two phones into a box and it became like a VR headset. And Carmack was also on that forum. So Carmack wrote to him and Carmack asked him for something.
Right.
And this guy, he just shipped him that prototype that he had. And then Carmack got really interested. And then Carmack became the CTO of Oculus Rift. Right. And then they eventually got acquired by Meta. So Carmack was working for Meta. I think he left now. But it's just like so interesting to see how that person has done like so many things.
This actually goes back to our very first episode with Brian McCullough, right? He said that how do you find success is these kind of things. Like you hang out in IRC channels and I don't know, today there are Slack groups and Discord channels and all that and reach out to people and someday some sort of connection will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, someday we will say like, oh, like we are Metacast, we podcast about podcasting. And then Tim Ferriss would be like, oh, can I come on your show? Or Joe Rogan. We'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, just gotta pay us.
I would actually pay for him to fly business for recording.
I don't think we'll be able to pay them enough. We'll see.
No, I mean, pay for his tickets, not for... He can sleep on an airbed in my office.
Right. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about that episode. There were so many innovative things they did with Winamp. One of the things we touched on was the plugin architecture. And I think even before open source was already a thing, but he seemed to me in that episode as we talked, a big, like a open software kind of person. Yeah, the plugin architecture, he said, I only use Linux for my laptop. So if Squadcast supports that, great. If not, we'll have to figure something else out. Yeah. That also, I think it's a generation of maybe software developers that you don't see often anymore.
Yeah, because now I think it's all commercial.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people doing great work for open source, but not many who would like basically say that I only use Linux and nothing else. Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting. He's like 5 years older than me.
Yeah.
Maybe like
3
years older than you.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, previously we were saying that you were 1 year older than me.
Yeah,
actually,
we figured out last night while having dinner that I'm 2 years older than you.
Yeah. Just somehow we mixed it up. So he's just like a couple of years older than you, like 5 years older than me. So that generation of us going into computers and software, really just out of sheer fun and enjoyment of the craft, Yeah. And nowadays, I think a big percentage of people go into the profession, they go there for money. Because like, you could make more money. It's just like people would become like doctors or lawyers. I mean, I can understand why people would want to become doctors, but why would people become lawyers? It's like you go there because it's like prestige and money and all that, and think that's how people go to tech. There was an episode on the Y Combinator podcast. There were people about our age, a bit younger than us. They were saying how back in the early 2000s, only like crazy nerds would go into tech. And now people go study computer science, but they actually want to be VCs, like investors. So their heart is not really with craft. It's like, how do I get to the top of the hierarchy?
Yeah, I mean, again, like not to, I think, gatekeep this, which is a good thing, right? More and more people today are getting into computer science than ever before. I'm not a computer science. By education, I'm not a...
Actually, that's the point. Like Justin... Frankel.
Yeah.
So he dropped out of school. So he's like self-taught computer programmer. Like you don't have to have education to be in that field.
Yeah. Today too, I mean, there are lots of people who find passion and come in. And there's nothing wrong with doing it for the money. right now, this is one of the top paying areas and maybe one of the easier to get into. It's harder in the beginning, but later on, it definitely gets easier, the software programming and that side of it. But yeah, I think back the time frame that you're talking about, people didn't know that you're going to be like big tech wasn't a thing. These kind of high paying jobs were not there. Software was very nascent. So yeah, it was not very common for people to go into it, other than if they found passion and charm in it.
Yeah, and to a point, there are probably fewer open source aficionados these days, because if you go there for the money, why would you do open source?
I think by sheer numbers, there's probably more now. Yeah, but by percentage, back then, I think almost everybody was all about open source at that time. Almost everybody.
Yeah. I think now a programmer like Frankel is less likely to arise, I guess, just because he was doing this out of sheer fun. He was fixing his own problem. Because now, like you have to enjoy the craft to do that. Yeah. Because like we were actually talking about earlier today, you really want to go with the flow, just generally in life. With the flow, like everything should feel like a breeze in the way that any good things take a lot of hard work to produce. But hard work should feel pleasant. You do that hard work and you feel really good after doing that hard work. You could feel tired and exhausted and maybe frustrated at times, but you still feel very good about yourself and what you're doing, right?
Net positive energy.
Yeah, it's net positive overall, right? And much more positive than like just neutral. Whereas if you do this out of pain, if you feel like struggle, you feel like, oh shit, it's like this hard work that I have to put to achieve something. So that's going against the flow. And I think when you do something for the money, there is a much higher chance that, let's say, if the money is longer there, or if you just don't feel like doing that, you might just burn out, right?
So talking about flow and energy and I guess sunshine, it's really beautiful outside. Do you have anything else before we wrap up and go for a walk?
Oh, let's see. There was something else I want to talk about, actually. Pause here. That might be the shortest episode we've ever recorded.
Which is good. We got feedback actually, right? I think I told you in person, but let me say on the episode too. This is a Metasode after all. One of my really old-time friends wrote back in email that our episodes, the Metasode especially, are really interesting. They really like listening to it, but they're also very, very long. And they said like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes is kind of like the right time. And we are about 34 minutes. We'll cut some of it out.
Yeah, so maybe one thing I would want to mention is after the Annie and Angela episode, the Hearts in Taiwan episode, I started doing a new thing. I took the video that we recorded and I created 3 Instagram reels with transcriptions that Instagram itself provides. Yeah. Those got a lot more views than I have subscribers, followers. So it got maybe like 500 views on one of those, the one that I've posted first. And then we also did, I think it's called a collaboration with the Hearts in Taiwan. So yeah, like the post I did appeared on their feed as well. Yeah. I think we got a couple of followers from that. Not a lot. But what I also noticed in my personal Instagram account, I recorded my Russian podcast, but I also did the video of it. And I did a reel. And the first reel I posted had no transcription. It got maybe 1,000, 1,500 views, which is okay. But then I did another one with transcripts, and then it got maybe like 3,500 views right away, which is how Instagram works. It kind of recommends content, and if people like it, it recommends more of it. And I think transcripts really help people just read it if they have their audio.
It's easier to skim.
It's easier to skim, yeah. If you can't listen, you can just read. So I think we'll continue doing those reels and see how that works.
You can check out the Instagram account at podcast hacks.
Yes.com.
.com?
No. Yeah. So I'm also wondering if podcast hacks, like there's something about that Instagram handle that doesn't sit well with me, because I'm more inclined to have my name as a login name. Not a login, I mean as a username. Yeah. Yesterday when I shared that I'm coming to you and you like reposted that and you said podcast hacks comes to me, it just feels so weird because of that username.
Yeah.
I don't know what username to use because my real name is occupied by my personal account.
Right. Which people can discover where?
In Instagram, I mean, it's Ilya.Bezdilev, but it's in Russian language. And I'm not going to change it to English because it's a different kind of content.
I try to use Instagram's translate feature, and I'd say maybe 60 to 70% of the time it works. And out of that 60 to 70% of the time, that translation is, I feel like it's meaningful enough for me to understand. About half the time.
It does not work in the videos, though.
No.
So if you add content over video, the text over video, it doesn't work. It just merges the text into video. Whereas with images, it keeps it separate. I find it weird. Why wouldn't it just do it? Yeah. Anyway, so what else do we have to talk about?
What food are you eating? I don't know.
So today you guys made some Indian food.
Yeah.
And I was like eating it with like a fork, and I saw both of you and your wife, just like eating like rice with your hands.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've seen this before. And previously I would have like, why would people do that? It's like, oh, your hands are all like in rice and curry. But today I was like, oh, I'll just go with the flow and do it.
Yeah.
I'll have to be honest. I prefer to eat with the fork.
Yeah, it's a hard habit to change, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the same thing, like it's hard for me to change that, especially if it's Indian food. I love eating with my hands. But if it's very similar, like let's say Thai food, right? I eat with a fork. Yeah.
So when you go to a restaurant, if you go to an Indian restaurant, would you eat with a fork or with your hands?
No, with forks.
With forks?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's just something about eating at home, I think. Yeah. With your feet up stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we could wrap this up.
Yeah. It's looking so inviting and beautiful outside, which doesn't happen often. And I just came back from sunny Mexico. So.
And I just came from
Sunny
very
Florida.
Gloomy
What?
Seattle.
Oh, okay. But before that, sunny Florida.
Yeah. Florida is awesome and amazing. And I came to Seattle. I arrived around 10 p.m. and there was something about Seattle. I'm like, I don't know. It's not a place for everybody. I was like, driving and listening to Alice in Chains, which is a group band from that place. And this song that I like is I Think It's Gonna Rain When I Die. And I think in Seattle, it's actually statistically very probable that if you die in Seattle, it might rain. In any case, I hope none of us dies by listening to this podcast. And I hope it's sunny and nice wherever you listen to this.
Yeah. If you don't die, that means you have a chance to leave a comment and rating for our podcast. So please do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's nice and sunny and you didn't die, I think it deserves a 5-star rating. Yeah, subscribe to our Substack at newsletter.metacastpodcast.com. Leave us reviews, send us an email at hello@metacastpodcast.com, and we will see you next week.
Yeah. Let's do a high five in person. Come over.
Yeah, that's it.
See ya.
See ya. Told ya.